My name is Eric Mwangi. I'm a filmmaker. Mostly I direct and DP, or in documentary what is called a shooting director. A director who can shoot. So you can be a one-man band, maybe with a song or something. And then, so that's what I do. I do fiction, I do doc, I also do commercials when the need arises. And that's it.
Okay, so I want us to talk about your background with documentaries. How fast did you know that you have an interest with documentary films, and what are some of the documentaries that you have managed to do in your line of work?
I think my first interaction with doc was in 2017 when a film, I believe it was Kenya's submission to the Oscars in 2018. It's the first documentary that really caught my attention. I think I'd been watching documentaries, but not that detailed. At that time, Thank You for the Rain was showing at Allianz, and it was a free event. And when I went there, I think for the first time in my life, never understanding what climate change is, I saw it on film and it made sense to me. So Thank You for the Rain, the way it was shot, the way the story was told was so captivating. And I was like, whoa, this is just like a regular movie. It's only that it's in documentary, within the documentary genre. And so that was my first interaction. So my second interaction would have been then. That was my first interaction as an audience member, where documentary really stood out. My first interaction with documentary as a filmmaker was when in 2020 COVID had hit, and a friend of mine was helping expectant women at term get to the hospital during curfew hours. So she was putting herself in danger, and taxi drivers trying to get women who are pregnant and at term, they're just about to give birth, rushing them to hospital. And so I saw the kind of work that she was doing, and since I'm a close friend to her, I asked if I could hang around and just document some of the work they were doing. And so DocuBox, what they did was that they taught me the art of verite filmmaking. And Judy Kibinge was just like, Eric, you need to hold the shot for 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And if you feel you're about to cut, hold it for a minute longer, because you might not know what will happen next. I ended up doing like 53-minute cuts, 53-minute shots, 60-minute shots. Sometimes even a shot would run for even 1 hour just because I was afraid to cut the camera. So that was one of my first interaction as a filmmaker on documentary during COVID, during the time of COVID. And that documentary to date is still in post-production. It's not yet done. I think that's all it is.
From my understanding, I do know that there are different types of documentaries. What can you say are the types of documentaries that you choose to major on?
Types. I think I've been very captivated with the idea of observational documentary. And I think what really captivates me is the truth that can be found in observational documentary, where you're like a fly on the wall, just observing with an outside eye in this specific world or this specific subject that you're filming. And you're ingesting material and you don't know where the story is really headed. In such instances, I like to say God is the director, because you don't know how someone's life will turn out in the next minute or the other minute. So that kind of filmmaking, what it does is that it presents you with material, and then you have to employ your creative input in post-production to come up with a story that is coherent, understandable, creative, dramatic as well, while at the same time mirroring the truth. And I think we've been able to now appropriate this kind of filmmaking to even NGOs and companies that are interested in storytelling can now use verite filmmaking to pass on their agenda to audiences.
Okay, from what I know is that a lot of inspiration is involved before you decide that I'm going to work on this particular work. So as for you, what inspires you creatively when you decide that I'm going to do this kind of documentary?
I think it has to do with the need that is there in the world. When you look around in Kenya, we don't have a lot of material to do with advocacy when it comes to film. And it's very difficult to make films for advocacy and have people interested. because normally they're usually very boring. So when Thank You for the Rain came, it was a good, wow, okay, it's a beautiful film. But it still felt too far away from me. I didn't know any of the filmmakers. I didn't know any of the, people in that world of that type of filmmaking, observational documentaries. Until Softy was done. When Softy was released, I think I was so stressed and impressed at the same time. In equal measure, I was disturbed, but at the same time so inspired. Because for the first time from Kenya, I saw a film that touched me, made me angry at the same time, and inspired me at the same time. And I think from that day I decided, you know what? I don't care how many candidates are vying, I'm voting.
Yeah.
So I saw film being used as a tool for entertainment, because the drama in Softy is a lot. There's a lot of drama. It's quite intense. While at the same time, it's very inspiring and educative.
Yeah.
I see this kind of films as the kind of films that policymakers can take and create laws out of, because the film has been used to expose the rot in society. Whether you understand?
Yeah.
So, like, the film exposes the rot in, say, the electoral system, or how people vote. And then you're like, oh, how people choose their leaders. And you're like, oh my goodness, I think I need to be sensitive. Could the same film be used to advocate for better campaign laws in Kenya?
I feel that it can be used to advocate for that. Oh.
If that is the case, then that film has found itself useful in society. That's what inspires me. So if we have a Softy, then we have Battle for Laikipia.
Yeah.
Then we have not I Am Someone. Please let me just look at because I watched this film Juicy, and it also focuses on the same issue that Battle for Laikipia does. Backroads Pictures. Searching for Money. Searching for Money has just come out, and it's an exploration of how just fortress conservation or conservation in Laikipia, and even just climate change has led to the death of this man. And the story is about a young boy going on a journey to find out who killed his father. And do you know who the biggest culprit was in that film? It was climate change.
Okay.
Climate change caused a bullet to be released from a gun that killed a man. And how do you uncover that using film? It's a very beautiful film. And so you see, those are some of the adverse effects of climate change that can be mirrored in a documentary. When you look at Battle for Laikipia, it's the concept of fortress conservation and how fortress conservation has alienated the pastoralists and sidelined them and destroying their way of life on the backdrop of preserving wildlife and ecosystems. And so those are very deep central questions that a documentary can make you ask. And the other question is, could that documentary be used to advocate for heritage, or to advocate for better land use laws in that part of the world? What is the outcome that would come from that documentary in terms of shaping policy? When you think about it that way, you cannot ignore filmmaking in terms of documentary filmmaking. And let's not even go into the now NGO type of filmmaking, which is another world entirely. So just those 2 examples or 3 examples can tell you the impact and the kind of inspiration that I've drawn from all these works.
Okay, I like that you have mentioned about climate change, and we are living in a world that is ever changing, ever evolving. And I want to touch on your creative process. How can you describe your creative process, and has it evolved over time?
Yeah, it has evolved over time, because if I look at my first project, my first verite project, I was just, placing the camera anywhere, and as long as the subject is in the shot, I'm good. But now I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking more and more, is there a cinematography language to verite filmmaking? How much of the cinematographer or the director can you put into the camera as you're trying to tell the story? Are there shooting methods and shooting styles you can develop that are part of your own identity and how you see the world? Let me just take that again. Are there shooting methods that you as a director can use in verite filmmaking that are subjective to yourself in terms of style, but objective in the sense of this issue coming out in an unbiased way? And so, if I am ingesting what the world is giving me into the camera, how is my exposure? How is my framing? How is my tracking ability with the camera? Am I using a tripod? Am I using a monopod? Am I using a shoulder rig? What choices am I making as a filmmaker to make sure that this scene is captured in the best way possible? So that has evolved, because before I could just place a camera much like the way these ones are and just leave them there.
You mentioned to us some of the works or documentaries that you've managed to do, and what I understand is that research needs to happen before you do this work. How can you describe your research process throughout this work?
When it comes to research, that is also evolving. We're currently working on a documentary where we'll be exploring the life of lions and the life of the Maasais. And the kind of research that we'll have to do is more than just reading. We visited the Kenya Wildlife Service to understand where conflicts with regards to lion happens in this country, to see where the story is sending us. We thought that the story would send us to Samburu, but now it's sending us to the Mara. And then now new reports are sending us to Kajiado. New reports are sending us to Taita Taveta. And so we have to look at data and then see what is going to happen, or anticipate where human-wildlife conflict is rife. We thought we were going to do a story on lions, but now the more overwhelming story has to do with elephants. So what choices then do I have to make with regards to that? All this is data that is on, IUCN, some of the wildlife data organizations, Wildlife Research Institute like KWS has a Wildlife Research Institute wing where human-wildlife conflict cases are updated daily. And so you read that data, but that data is just data. You need to convert it into a story. By a string of luck, we found a guy who works in research, who knows a guy who's from Maasai land, where human-predator conflict is rife. So then you have to call the guy, you have to sit down with him, you have to make him understand what you're trying to do, and invite him to the table as a participant in making the story. Which means, when the credits roll, his name is going to be there as a researcher. I am not Maasai, I am Kikuyu. I'm from the central part of this country. But I'm going to make a film in deeper parts of Kajiado, so deep that regular transport does not get there. Which means I may have to be embedded with the Maasai for about 2 weeks to a month, learning their ways, seeing their way of life, before my camera can even go. And that is just part of the research process, trying to immerse yourself into the world of the characters whom you're going to be filming and honoring their lives as an outsider. So you are there looking in, so that we don't do the thing that colonialists did, coming to the country and being extractive, just taking and going without the community participating in whatever it is that you're doing. So research it takes different forms. For NGO filmmaking, NGO type of documentaries, you don't need to do much research. Perhaps maybe you need to do research with regards to reading, a lot of reading about the organization, a lot of reading about the people you're going to shoot, the CEOs, the people who are going to be featured, the impact the organization has done. And once you educate yourself on that, you devise questions beforehand with regards to the topic that you're going to film. But for observational documentary, it's the other way around. You're asking for people to give you access into their personal lives. You're asking for people to give you access into how they live. You're going to be seeing different things about their daily lives that can paint them in a negative light. Would they be okay with this? Or on what level do they need to be okay with this? This means that they need to give you access. And access is a very, very important currency in documentary filmmaking. If you're a person who comes and abuses how other people live, I can assure you the next time you go there, they're not going to be that open. But if you're a person who honors how other people live and goes there and you're there to learn, you're there to be taught, you're there also to see and experience this thing as an outsider looking in, and the humility that you're an outsider looking in, they're going to give you gems and material that you didn't even ask for. They're going to be real in front of the camera. They're going to even forget the camera exists. And by so doing, you get now the truth about who they are. And that is exactly what you want for your documentary. You don't want to go somewhere and people are performing for the camera. It's a very damning thing. You'll actually create a very superficial documentary or a very staged thing that has no taste to it. So what you need is to find a way to get there by learning everything you can about the subjects that you're featuring on your camera.
Okay, you have mentioned something that I want to ask about. In your line of work, have you ever worked on documentaries about topics around FGM, and how do you stay sensitive to such topics to ensure that you don't bring in conflict to yourself and to the community?
No, not at that level. Oh my goodness, you remember my first film. My first film was actually a high school film. One of those drama festival films in 2015 that actually won Best Film in Kenya. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one, 2015. And it was an FGM story. We were filming at St. Mary's Girls Runda. And how we curated those scenes. Oh my goodness. When you're dealing with such a sensitive topic, you have to find creative ways of bringing the issue to the forefront without diluting the issue, but at the same time without it being jarring in a way that will make people not want to watch the film again. How you approach that, I think you have to approach that through a lot of empathy, which is kind of what happened on the fiction film Impact of Love. Being a man, not having experienced what it is to be pregnant, I don't know the female experience. How then do you bridge that gap in a way that makes Joy here feel understood? And one of the ways is to really think about your story in a way that at what point does Joy and I relate? Do men and women relate? You know? And I found out that for that specific film, the idea of frustration is a human experience. It is not a female experience, it's not a male experience. Both of us experience frustration in different ways. It's only that in this time, this frustration has to do with maternal mental health or an issue like FGM and all of that. Once you find that bridge, it will be easier for you to tell the story. So for me, what I had to ask myself was, have I ever experienced a day from hell? A day where like by at 10 a.m. I wanted that day to be over. If that is the case for me, if I have ever experienced that frustration, that's probably the same type of frustration Juliana, the main actor in that film, was experiencing, because that day in the film was a day from hell. So it's not really the fact that I have never carried a child or I don't know what it is to breastfeed a child. Is it, have you ever been frustrated? If the answer is yes, there is a bridge for empathy. And once you find that bridge for empathy, you can tell any story. Yeah. I know of directors who are actually Kenyan directors who are making it very well in Hollywood, and they are telling stories about white people. Umetoka East Lando, but unashoot movie ya Hollywood. It has white people in it. What do you know about the white experience? Probably nothing. But are they human beings?
Yes.
If so, then there is a bridge that you can find.
So we know you as a director, we know you as a cinematographer. I want to ask, is there a specific role that you play when it comes to documentary filmmaking? And also, as you create these documentaries, what are some of the favorite moments that you've had during your line of work?
When it comes to docu, I favor cinematography mostly right now. My directing in documentary is slowly evolving, and it's very tough. It's a very tough landscape to thrive in. You never really come to a place where you figure it out. Much like in fiction, where you can have a format of how you work. In documentary, I think it's more than just a format. It's a discipline. It's an art, and every project has its own nuances. It has its own ups and downs, and it has its own taste. So I think for documentary, I am learning how to direct while using my DP skills to, I get paid more as a DP than a director. So right now I'm building my own stories as directors to try and work that muscle for directing, because directing in documentary is quite different from fiction. This is what I've found to be true. If you are a good storyteller, you will be a good DP and you'll be a good director if you commit. So if storytelling is what you're doing, your directing will grow and your DP work will grow. Some of the most favorite moments have been, this day I was filming in Mara, and we were in a Manyata, and the moment I switched on the camera, the image I got inside that Manyata, from outside it doesn't look like much. When you get in with your naked eyes, it's so dark. But I found this small hole in the it's like this size. I think it was this size in the Manyata, and that was like the key light. That's actually what we used as the key light. And the fire from the jiko where they're cooking was now where like your feel light is on the people who are in the room, and it was just so beautiful being in there with the camera. Much more than what your eye is seeing. And I think that was quite rewarding because I had never shot inside a Manyata before. But this time, I'm shooting something that is so beautifully African in a way that I personally have never seen before. So I think those are some of the rewarding moments. Other moments would be like, you did not expect the character to do something, and then just sort of magically they are themselves and they do this thing that is so powerful on camera and it actually makes it to the final cut of the film. That's sort of, I think I've spoken to you about the goat in Island of Hope, and I can give you that shot. It's really, really beautiful, whereby this goat just came towards the lens of the camera, and just after like a few seconds it was like meh. And I've never shot anything like that before. So everything just worked together so that you may get the shot. So I think those are some of the things that I really, really enjoy. Also this thing that we shot in the Mara with regards to the lions. There were lions that were just tearing up this eland, and they were just roaring, and they just caught that meat and they just started tearing and pulling and pulling and pulling. Very angry and hungry lions. That was amazing. I have the shot.
Okay, you've talked about cinematography, and cinematography entails a lot with storytelling, and I want us to talk about the storytelling aspect of documentaries. Are there major things that influence the stories that you make?
Influences for the story that I make. Wow. Yeah. I think identity is one of them. Identity in the sense that how do we see ourselves as Africans? How do we see ourselves as people? How do I see myself, and what is my perception? And I've found out that I discover more about myself when I see how people relate with themselves. For example, I could have a camera here And I could see how this woman is treating her child, herself, her environment, and how she's responding to stimuli or external stimuli, pressure, or how she's responding to the joys of something that has happened. Oh, another beautiful moment. I was filming this woman who had just gone to fetch water, and she's coming back home to her manyatta. We get there, and she's like, we had not planned this. And she's like, now I want to go and check for my cows. There's a cow that is about to give birth. I need to go and check. And when we get there, she's going directly to the cow, and she starts singing to the cow. She started making this Maasai chant to the cow. It's so beautiful and so musical. And that was unplanned. And that, you see, now that reveals something about how she treats her cow. It has a name, and she follows it around and pets it and touches it. And I wish I could sing that song. It was so beautiful. So when she was done, I just had to ask her, for the sake of sound, to just sing that song again. And she did it like 3 times, and it was so beautiful. I can't wait to edit that scene. It's like the most magical thing I've done this year. So those are some of the rewarding things. And what was the question?
What are some of the major things that influence the stories that you tell?
Yeah, identity. Identity was one of them. How people see themselves, how people really see the world, the lens which they wear to view the world. Those are some of the things that really influenced me as a filmmaker. And I think it's from that backdrop that I now can put a signature to my films. I can now. Those are some of the things. Do I see this as a wide angle lens? Like when I was shooting in the Mara, close-ups were very few. I could go on such super wide shots because the landscape is too beautiful to ignore. Like I would rather come closer to your face on a wide angle lens because of what I'll see around you than use a close-up lens to shoot a close-up. So that actually, when I get it, it's just too magical to ignore. The rolling mountains at the back, the trees, these magical trees that Maasai elders sit under, and it has to be that specific tree because it represents a certain part of their culture. Then how do we accentuate that tree? I had to do like drone shots of that tree. I had to do like really diopter lenses on that tree, like camera this close just to get the character. It's a very old tree with even cobwebs inside, and it has been there for ages. And for the elders to meet there under a tree that looks like an elder, there is a relationship between the tree and the people. And just merging those two worlds is just magical. I think that's one of the ways I get inspired.
Okay, so other than these shots and the angles that you use, are there other specific techniques that you use when telling these stories?
If I happen to scout the location beforehand, I get inspiration in terms of how I will shoot. If I don't get to scout a particular location beforehand, and it's very difficult and very expensive for documentaries, you may not get even an opportunity to scout. I have to use my guerrilla filmmaking style because I learned on the backdrop of, in Africa we don't have very structured ways of teaching filmmaking. We don't have many places where you can learn by doing so that you know what to do when you go to set. We only have like theory. We can try here and try here in university, but it's never going to be enough for you as a filmmaker to develop a style of your own. For that reason, even in delivering assignments like this, I had to learn guerrilla filmmaking. And guerrilla filmmaking is being able to spot opportunities immediately you get to a location. Oh, that's a wide, that's a nice back. Oh, that's a nice back. So I knew, for example, when I do documentaries, select your background first. Knowing your camera's capability, knowing your capabilities, knowing your lighting capabilities, select your background. The most beautiful background, make it work. If it can't work, find the next best option. And so once you select that background, place your main camera, know where your angle, where your first angle is, where your main angle is going to be. Then select if you have a second camera, select your secondary angle, or select where your key light is going to be and your backlight is going to be, and then set that up. Once you set that up, you're good. So it's been a beautiful experience just to see how that has influenced the way I make choices on set, to a point where now I'm never worried going to set. But now I can even build my kit knowing if I go in the darkest room, this is what I need. If I go in the brightest room, this is what I need. So now it's just a matter of responding to whatever stimuli I get once I go to the set.
Okay. So after having collected all these footages and now it's the time to do editing, is there a particular approach that you use when it comes to editing? And how do you ensure that you have an effective storytelling?
For documentary, it's quite difficult to follow through on everything you shot. It's not like a film where you have a script beforehand and you know exactly what you're going to shoot. So what happens is normally is that a friend of mine called Abel Waweru, who's an up-and-coming documentary filmmaker, is mostly in post-production. And he has made such incredible strides in post-production. And he taught me how to log footage. By logging footage means that I wish I'll send you a document, maybe you can use it on this explanation. It's like an Excel sheet where it shows you on this specific day, these scenes were shot. So you might have, today you're probably going to do like 8 hours filming. You take those 8 hours and you break them down into scenes. So when you are uploading or when you're recording your material on the log sheet, you can select today is like Thursday 24th. Thursday 24th, Eric cooking, Eric singing while doing laundry, scene 2. Those are the scenes you shot on that day. So you instead of just having this massive block of footage on your hard drive, you do an Excel log where you log all these details. So you can break down your day into scenes. And once you break down your day into scenes, you can break down your day into scenes. And once you break down your day into scenes, you're able to see what is you're able to track your story, because you're going to see your film not in footage, but in scenes. And once you have scenes, you can script. Once you script, then you can have an edit. You can have a first cut, a second cut. And in that document, you'll actually see that, oh, this is Eric and Joy in the kitchen preparing tea. Okay, Joy putting margarine on the bread. Now they're in the sitting room drinking tea as they talk about documentaries. Now they're in the room filming. See, those are segments we did the same day. Then you go and see, oh, has the footage been synced with audio? Yes. To every scene, yes. Is the footage encoded? Yes. Have proxies been created on that same footage? Yes. Have assemblies begun? Version 1, now we can start cutting version 1 of every scene. So you might have a scene that is running for 30 minutes and you cut it into a minute or 2. So as you go that way, you started with this approach, you're funneling down, until now you have this lean material that you can create into a dramatic film with ups and downs and themes. It will come out more specifically as you go. So, and then now overlaying it with now interviews, where interviews are necessary and all of that. It's a pretty neat way to work. It's quite tedious, but it's the safest way to actually see 100 hours of footage. How do you bring 100 hours into 7 minutes or 10 minutes of film? 40 hours, 25 hours, 30 hours into a 10-minute film, into a 5-minute film, and deliver a masterpiece.
Okay, so you have been to the Mara, you have been to Congo, and I want to ask, like, in your line of work, is there that particular documentary that you did and you're like, this was a challenging one, and how were you able to overcome those obstacles?
Safari Story Lab, I think, must have been the most challenging one. Okay, Safari Story Lab and the Congo one. Safari Story Lab gave me Empalikim, an incredible team of filmmakers. It was a 10-day boot camp where we had to make a wildlife film within 4 days and deliver an edit. And one thing about wildlife film is that you need to be very, very, very patient. And it gave me a proof of concept for a bigger film, which is now we're trying to preach. For the Congo one, I think Island of Hope. Traveling here, going to Congo, experiencing the border. Oh my goodness. It was so tough getting to that island because we shot at an island on Lake Kivu that is sort of unreached by even technology. Like there's no electrical grid in Injui Island. Not a single electric pole. You will not see it anywhere. The hospitals are kilometers and kilometers away from each other. You could even cross over the island to go into another part of the island, which is actually ruled by 2 different kings. That tells you how big it is just to get to a hospital. Women will die on the way. Women who are like at 6, I'd say like at 5 months pregnant, would start their journey to delivery, going to deliver their baby. I'd say 3 months before their delivery, they start walking to the hospital. So getting there, the way we got there, with all our gear, and doing such a spectacular job, I think that was one of the most rewarding experiences ever. It was so difficult, but then you get there, it is so beautiful. And then you're working, this is amazing. You're working as filmmakers in a place where people speak French, Kihavu, which was very difficult to translate. Once you film it, you need a translator who's a person who understands film, transcription, to translate from Kihavu to English, French to English, and Congolese Swahili, which is very difficult, to English. So you have 3 languages to transcribe so that you can begin your editing. Because you understand what you're seeing. Oh, she's washing a child and she's asking the child about jiggers. Okay. He is inspecting the babies to see if the babies, how malnourished the babies are. You understand these things by seeing, but you don't know what they're saying. And you need audio is one of the biggest things in documentary. You'd rather have bad picture, but not bad audio. Yeah. Perfect audio is like number 1 in documentary, not picture. Audio is number 1. So if you have good audio and good picture, you're even better off. Now, when you come to editing, you make sure you transcribe all of that, and then now you begin editing. So that whole process really taught me a lot, and it's given me one of the best works I have ever done in my life, I think, by far, right now.
Okay, so you have done all these beautiful stories with beautiful people. Before you start doing a particular documentary, do you already have like a particular target audience that you want to submit this work to? Or a particular audience that you want to showcase the work to?
My goodness, that's usually a very tricky question for me to answer. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about the audience. That sounds like a very mean thing to say, but I honestly don't really care about the audience. Not in that way. I feel I'm there to make a story and it will have its audience. It will lead me to the audience that needs to watch it. For example, Island of Hope has a very, very huge audience in the health landscape. Do you think I thought about the health? I'm going to make a film about the health landscape, and before the audience in the health industry is going to watch this and be like, wow, a film about us. No, I just made a beautiful film, and healthcare professionals are resonating with it. People who are in dire need of health are resonating with it. Community health workers are resonating with it. Hospitals, governments, NGOs in the health sector are resonating with it. Act of love. Did I make a movie because I want women? In fact, I was making that movie for entertainment. I'll just tell you the truth. Me, I just wanted to make a dope movie where people will be like, wow, 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 wow. And we achieved it. We realized that it's actually an impact tool when we did the first cut of the film. That's when we realized, oh my goodness, there's something here. The producer came. She came from Germany. She was like, Eric, you need to be deliberate about this story. And the way to be deliberate about this story, you need to make very tough choices and deliberate choices about this story, because I came to Kenya to watch this first cut, and while I was on the plane, my child could not stop crying. Therefore, if you mess up this story, you're messing up my story. I think that is when now I started clicking that, oh, we have a story about maternal mental health. So to be honest, I don't. Do you think I made a story about philanthropists? Now I need an audience in the funding sector. No. We didn't know what we were doing, maybe. Me, I was there to just tell an honest, genuine story. And that's what I did. It found its audience because of how impactful the film is.
Eric, you have done this impressive work, and after having all this work, you have your footage, you have everything in place. Do you have distribution networks for the work that you do? And for you, how do you prefer distributing your work?
Well, it really depends on the nature of the project. Distribution has to do with the choices and decisions you want to make with regards to distribution. For the solution storytelling project, I'm so thankful that distribution was not part of our work. That was being handled by Skull Foundation. It's a Californian-based nonprofit where they've already created this massive following on their YouTube channel. So distribution was primarily done on YouTube. I think that film has over 50,000 views up until now, which is really good. And that's one. For the film that we're working on, we haven't decided where the film will go right now, but we'll decide that once we get the lion's share of the financing. Once we get say maybe 80% of our financing for the film, then we can start thinking about where we want the film to go. But I know right now I want a theatrical release and I want a broadcaster, maybe a European broadcaster preferably, to take the film up. That's as far as I know right now. Other choices I'll discover later on. Also, the films that I've done are not for distribution purposes. This would be the first film that I'm doing for distribution, because it takes a more dramatic container, can I call it. We're making a story about lions and people, but in a way that looks like a movie. So that will have an entertainment angle to it as well as impact. So we'll have a theatrical release angle, we'll have a broadcast release angle, we'll have a festival circuit for the film, a festival and awards circuit, and then we'll have impact in terms of bringing the film back home with an impact model that is attached to where that film was shot. So this film will be shown to communities experiencing human-predator conflict and schools that are also teaching and sensitizing people about wildlife all over East Africa. So that is how you think about distribution for a film. And it's something you can start practicing now. Even if you don't have a distribution for this film, you can start thinking, where would this film go? Schools, for example, it's a direct one. That one. Film libraries in Kenya is another one. That's how to think about your distribution. And then as you make your film, as it starts forming, the DNA of the film is forming, other angles will open up.
Hey, you have talked about financing, and I want us to talk about funding. For somebody who is outside there and wants to know about funding, how does one get funding for documentary projects?
Pitching. To get funding for your documentary projects, pitching. We're in an industry that is heavily grant reliant. And for these grants, you have to apply. Application is just like a typed pitch. Some of them will ask for a video pitch, others will ask for an in-person presentation, others will be a virtual pitch. To get funding for your documentary is number one, if the film has an overarching theme, has layers of themes, you approach people interested in funding those themes. For example, you might have a documentary that is about human-wildlife conflict. There are organizations that fund work that has to do with human-predator conflict. But in the same film, the mother conflict in that film, or the bigger conflict in that film, is climate change. So you find someone who funds climate change. Then you find someone who funds culture. Because the film then is not within urban society, it's actually domiciled in like a cultural context within the Maasai, whatever. Or here's another one. You could find funding from someone who is keen about conservation. That's another place to find funding. So those are 4 funding sources for one film. So you look at the themes that your film is exploring and you break them down in clear terms. And you can have a pitch for each different one that is different from the other. In fact, you can have a climate change pitch that does not even mention conservation anywhere. And you can have a conservation pitch that heavily mentions climate, and it will make sense. So how you think about those things, you'll be able to create a very good pitch for each, and you'll find the money. You'll find the money.
I want us to still focus and talk about the trends and the techniques in documentary. And the world we're living right now, we have new technology, we have the AI. What role do you think AI has to play with documentaries?
Imagining things. That's as far as I see AI go right now. I might be ignorant and I'm speaking maybe as a young boy who knows nothing. But I think when it comes to AI, I can be able to dramatize scenarios that are long gone or long past and in the past. Instead of shooting reenactments, I can incorporate AI to reimagine some sequences that were from the colonial times and recreate images to be able to reimagine what some of those sequences could be like. So if I'm interviewing a family member from the Mau Mau, for example, and they tell us verbally around a campfire some of the atrocities that used to happen at that time, instead of just listening to them alone, we can go into the past and reimagine what that was. I think those are some of the things that AI can bring. And what that does is, of course, it might bring a huge budget animation-wise or recreation-wise. That might save me the hassle of having to shoot some of these scenes. And if AI can do that, then AI can help me storyboard for the end reenactments and that kind of thing. I think that's where we can leverage such. Also, AI can be used to polish up your pitch. You can feed it your pitch and tell it to anticipate the responses from this. You can ask it to, you can ask AI to act as a strict judge, and it will listen to and then point back at you the loopholes your project does not focus on. And the more you keep going inside that hole, your project becomes better and better and more expansive and sure. And then it keeps evolving with time. So those are some of the things that we can leverage from AI. Remember that AI is not something that creates from original. It creates from what is there. Therefore, you are the creator, not AI. It's only as good as what you feed it. So, yeah.
Other than AI, do you see other trends being integrated into the documentary scene?
Yeah. I see other trends being integrated in documentary filmmaking. Like right now, mythology is something that is coming up very heavily, especially with countries that focus on First Nations. First Nations are like the first people to ever be in Kenya, who has the claim to the land, and that kind of thing. Maasai are big in Maasai, I think, are part of the First Nations in Kenya. I think mythology is coming up strong with regards to actually the identity thing I was telling you about. How we're decolonizing the way we are thinking right now. And by decolonizing the way we are thinking, we are going, it's like we're looking back and we're turning back to what our traditional African societies sort of like taught us. And what truth can we find there? And these are stories that are now being received very well out there because of the whole decolonization angle. So perhaps maybe that's something that we should look into more deliberately. And that's going to go on for quite some time. For as long as colonialism is a thing, or neo-colonialism is a thing, identity will be a big subject.
Okay, with all these changes, how do you ensure that you stay up to date with the latest advancements and technologies when it comes to film and even documentaries?
I think read what other people are doing. Look at what the Americans are doing, what the Europeans are doing, what the Asians are doing, South Africans are doing. You can be able to see or to project where you will be in time. How do I put this in a more practical way? Right. Disney has just released an anthology of 6 films from Africa. Those films carry very, very heavy spiritual nuances for that are more than just a film made by an African. It's what it shows about African spirituality, for example, kind of thing. For that reason, what are the possibilities that lie ahead in terms of imagining Africa story-wise, using Disney technology for making animation? And you know how that technology can imagine worlds, like very, very deep, vast worlds. I mean, look at Marvel and the fact that they've created an entire universe, using technology, a lot heavy CGI. What is the equivalent of that when it comes to African storytelling for the future? Can we go back and imagine Rwanda again? Is it possible? Can we go back and imagine Libon, the Maasai Libons who gave out land? Can we go back and reimagine worlds and paint others? I think on 27th of this month, DocuBox is going to be showcasing short films in their shorts program. And the theme of that that screening, which will be on the 27th, I think at Prestige Cinema, is Afrofuturism. How can Africa be imagined in a futuristic way? Consider the work of Osman Mashari. Go look up Osman Mashari and see how his eye sees African visionaries, African futurism, Afrofuturism, or how he sees the elderly dressing in style. There is so much to do, and there is so much we can achieve by pushing some of these boundaries. So I think we need to find a way to bridge the gap between what Western societies are doing by taking the right things that they're doing and leaving out the wrong, and using the right to advantage. Technology is one of them that we can leverage. And then keep our language. Let's keep our languages. Like, the more local we get, the more potential we have to go global. The more Luo I can get, the more Kikuyu I can get, the more Somali I can get, the more Kamba I can get, while, using Disney technology, the more global I get, because of the authenticity that can come out in such storytelling techniques. It's kind of a paradox, but yeah.
Okay, you have done massive work in your line of work, and I want to ask, is there a way in which you define success for a documentary filmmaker, and what are some of the skills you feel are essential for a documentary filmmaker?
I'll start with the skills. I think one of the skills as a documentary filmmaker that you should have is the ability to listen, the ability to lean forward as a storyteller and enter the world of that story and tell a story that is so compelling because you are able to understand who you're filmmaking, who you're making the film for, who you're making the film about, that is, not necessarily for, but who you're making the film about. That one will set you apart. Then on top of that, add good image and good sound. People are going to lean forward to watch. It doesn't matter what the subject is. If you can do it in an artistic way, in a way that is human and compelling, I think you have a chance at capturing the hearts of people. That one hinges on how good you are at storytelling and how you leverage different tools to tell stories. In terms of what the measure of success, wow. Success to me looks like being able to express yourself and your truth to the world, and they lean forward and learn something from your truth. And I think it is very possible to tell a story here in Africa in a way that someone in France can be like, "Whoa, I felt that." That means you have tapped into the universal language. And that is success for me. In Kenya, I would want maybe those films that have been done already to start affecting policy and shaping policy in some way or other. But I realize that may not happen even in this generation, maybe the generation of our children or our children's children. However, we can't stop or slack in doing these films. And the reason is this: we are building a library of films. From Softy, from those films, as director, Thank You for the Rain, Battle for Laikipia, Searching for Money, How to Build a Library, Our Land, Our Freedom. All those films, they are building a library for our children to watch and be like, we have to do something about this country. Our Land of Freedom by Eric Mwangi. And the director from the Queen of Katwe director. I forget her name, but her name starts with M. I don't know whether it's Maya or Maria. So, it explores just the daughter of Dedan Kimathi just trying to find where her father was buried so that she can give Dedan Kimathi a befitting send-off. That's just the heart of the story. It's a very powerful story. Land, colonialism, culture, the traumas of colonialism just spilling out, and just how the atrocities that were done at that time. You could even see Dedan Kimathi's wife. Oh my goodness, it's so heartbreaking. And you can just see the exploration of this film, the journey these characters have to go through as they're digging up bones that belong to the Mau Mau, just to try and give them a befitting send-off. Politics surrounding that and all of that. And that is what does that film do for us now? I'll tell you this, probably nothing. In the immediate sense, probably nothing. But in 10 years to come, in 20 years to come, then, when people have started taking things seriously in this country, those films are going to be becoming something. Yeah.
Okay, you have listed a couple of Kenyan documentaries. What is your opinion about documentary filmmaking in Kenya?
The documentary film scene in Kenya is growing very vibrantly and in a very stable way. It's a small community, but they are doing marvelous things. And I cannot wait to see what the next film will be. Battle for Laikipia has just come out. Our Land of Freedom is now coming out next week. And actually this 27th, in 3 days. And I cannot wait to see it. I think on 26th, the day after tomorrow. So I cannot wait to see what will pan out. I think more people need to start getting into documentary filmmaking of this kind. I think people in other professions also have a chance of tasting documentary filmmaking. If you're a scientist and you're dealing with research and all these things, you can be a documentary filmmaker and explore scientific documentaries. If you're a historian, you can explore historical documentary filmmaking. If you're an engineer, there's a way just to do things. There's an intersection between the disciplines that people do and storytelling. That intersection, that's where documentary filmmaking lies, or even fictional filmmaking. That's where it lies. It lies.
Okay. Eric, you have a vast experience with documentaries, and some of us really look up to you. And I want to ask you, are there particular documentary filmmakers that you can say shaped you or inspired you in this world?
I'll keep going back to Softy. I think what Softy did for me, and Thank You for the Rain. It's a film by Kisilu Mwasia and Julia Dar, D-A-R-H. I think she's Swedish or Danish, one of the two. That film did a number on me. And if you want to watch it, you can contact DocuBox. I think they may have a link, or you can even just stream it and pay for the license. It's not that much. It's not expensive. That film, Thank You for the Rain, led to the creation of a dam in that community. And those guys can plant food all year round now because of that film. Because of a film, a dam was created. Do you know what that means? It means livelihoods have changed. It means there's vegetables to sell. It means they don't have to depend on rain for dry seasons. It means they can harvest any time and plant many times over. It means children are able to go to school because of a film. There is no way you can tell me that filmmaking does not have power. Yeah? Softy, Boniface Mwangi has done a lot of work, many years. And it took a finance bill this year for people to be serious about it. What a shame. So, my goodness. I can't wait to see what Battle for Laikipia will achieve. That film is so urgent. I wish people knew how urgent and necessary that film is. Every Samburu person, even every Maasai person who watches that film, they are touched to the core. They are touched to the core. And those are the people who need to run for elective office. Those are the people who need to do something about land rights and land laws in this country. Land is a very emotive issue in this country. The lands court is the busiest court in this country. And we can do something about land through films like this. Yeah, so the documentary film scene is I think we're only getting started. Yeah.
As we wind up, I would want to know, is there a memorable experience that you have in your line of documentary filmmaking?
Yeah. This one is good. Yeah, this one is good. I don't know if you guys know Anthony Bourdain. You need to go and check out Anthony Bourdain. He was a master chef in this world. He was a celebrity chef, sort of like Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, you know Gordon Ramsay?
Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony Bourdain and Gordon Ramsay were friends, actually. They respected each other because they are Michelin star chefs. But Anthony Bourdain, much like Gordon Ramsay, had his own show. His own show. It's called Parts Unknown. I think it's something that was being fronted by CNN. And my first experience in an international production in documentary was with Anthony Bourdain. And it is the film that actually bought me that laptop and this desk and that chair. All this came from that film. And I moved out of my parents' house and then started a life of my own. This was in 2018. So the memorable experience was that I got to see how commercial documentaries are done, how to format a commercial documentary, how to film for it. They have these 3 cinematographers, 2 of whom have been to over 90 countries with that show. That show is called Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain. And they have been imprisoned in countries like Chad, just filming. And the filmmakers, 2 of the filmmakers are actually filming Trafficked by Mariana Vanzela. It's a Nat Geo documentary that is, I think this year they've scoped like almost 10 Emmys or something. That same crew, the same crew we were working with in Parts Unknown. I saw the mastery of just these talented filmmakers who will do anything for anything in the right way for the shots. Or for these people could even fall into funny bushes but still hold the shots. You know what kind of dedication? You're bleeding but you're holding the shot. It was just amazing. So a memorable experience was that Musyoka from Decimal Records and I were in one of the tour vans and we were shooting in Lewa, Conservancy. And as we were shooting, we had gone to a place where the Samburu were doing things in the raw way the way they do things. They pierce the cow and the blood comes out and they mix it with whatever and they drink it. And then they roast meat over fresh fire and every man has his own sword and everything and all that. And they eat it just like that. And Anthony Bourdain was now within that setting, tasting that food and integrating himself into the culture and all of that. So it gets to around this time, for something. And if we finished shooting for the day, and Anthony Bourdain, of course, being a celebrity, he's taken back to the lodge at the first. For us, we had to wrap up the gear and mount the gear and everything. And as we look, we can see dense clouds. So as we're done filming, the driver starts going back to the whatever, taking us back to the lodge. But halfway there, because it's like a 45-minute drive to the lodge, I think in like 10-15 minutes, it starts raining heavily. I had a Sony, I was using a Samsung Galaxy phone, and I had never placed the phone in this breast pocket, so I happened to place it there on this time, and during this time. I think because I was carrying cameras and everything, so I think my phone, I just placed it there and I continued moving on. 15 minutes into that drive, the rain was too much. The car had so much gear. We were using 3 cameras. Musyoka had a sound mixer, which is very heavy, like I think 8-channel mixer. It's actually very heavy. And we are on this drive back, and the drive is just skidding through the rough terrain, trying to get back to the lodge. And the roads are getting muddier by the minute. The rain is torrents until he slides this way and then slides this way and then hits the side of the road. And then the Land Cruiser cannot come out of that place. So when he slides and hits, the impact of that skid was so hard that my ribs hit the car. Had it not been for the phone that I had placed here, I think I would have like 3 broken ribs. And as I took my phone out, it was bent. It was like a curved phone. I think it was like this. And that is actually what saved me from probably imminent death. For Musyoka, the way he had sat, one of the metallic pieces of the mixer slid onto his skin and just tore his skin out. and he started bleeding profusely. And then the car refused to move. So we have like a 20-minute drive back to the lodge. One is bleeding, the other one is hurt. The director just said, Eric, drop the camera into the car and abandon everything. We are walking back to the lodge. My gosh. That was the time when lions come out to hunt. I'm telling you, it was like a movie. At this time, it's already 7 p.m. Darkness is this darkness. So we are now walking. Raincoats are not even helping. We're lifting one leg after the other in the mud. Musyoka is bleeding. So we see a nearby lodge and we go there. And when we enter to seek shelter, the guy who comes out, he's just looking at us and he sees Musyoka's wound and he grabs, I don't know if it was vodka or whiskey, and he pours it on Musyoka so that disinfects it. It was like a movie, man. It was so good. So we're in pain, but it was so good. So they abandoned the equipment because it was heavily insured. So there was no loss anywhere. So I think that was one of the most memorable movies I've ever had in documentary filmmaking. I was a camera assistant of that job. So I think I really, 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 really enjoyed it. I lost, that phone was stolen by a dodgy guy, but it didn't help me much because it was a bent phone and I'm the only one who knows how to operate that phone. So yeah, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Painful, but it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. I think I got a taste of what this cruise experience when they go into labs that they don't know. I keep remembering how that vodka was being, or that whiskey was being poured on Musyoka, and it was like a movie. It was like a movie. Yeah, and then 10 minutes later, a rescue land cruiser came for us, and we were taken back to our lodge. Yeah. And there's so many other movies, so many more stories I could share.
What can you say is your advice to an aspiring documentary filmmaker?
Start to those aspiring filmmakers. To those filmmakers who are looking to get into doc. Start by filming the characters around you. Your mom, your friend who's a musician, your friend who's a model, your friend who's an artist is someone you could explore in just trying to get what their life is about. You can do a one-day thing. Write like paper scenes that you'd want to film them about and start making documentaries. Learn the art of the interview, the art of, curating scenes for documentary. Find a way to tell stories about the people around you and how you can bring this forward to screen. Make YouTube shorts about people. Make reels about people, and in a documentary format. And that's how you learn. Check out Instagram, AOD, Art of Documentary. It's a helpful it's Video Consortium. Video Consortium trained me last year with regards to reality films for NGOs. That's another thing you could learn. DocuBox, East African Documentary Film Fund, is a community of filmmakers as well. You need to know about them, read about them, go to their website, check them out, see the kind of films that they've done and what incentives they have and that kind of thing. Position yourself closer to documentary filmmakers. Check out people like Tony Kamau, check out people like Lydia Matata, Eric Mwangi, check out people like Pete Moremi, Sam Soko. Get to learn what they've done. Maya, Leko, Christopher King, who are husband and wife documentary filmmakers and doing incredible things. Educate yourself. The more you watch, the more you see, the more you're able to do things that are closer to the dream. Yeah, start by watching and doing. You can do a one-day doc and edit it. Overshoot, learn the mistakes. Delete your sound by mistake. Delete your footage by mistake. This is how you learn how to package yourself for production, how to have backup, how to have hard drives, how to have this and that, so that you don't repeat the same thing the next time. And yeah, when you do that, I think you will get closer and closer to the dream.
Okay, we've been rolling for quite some time now. What can you say is your take home from this interview?
My take home from this interview is that I need to know how to talk about myself more. I really hate being on this side of the camera. I really don't like it. But I'm starting to realize that I need a sharper mind in terms of understanding the issues that are affecting me personally and my work, and also the issues surrounding the topics that interest me, and all, so that when you're asked, you're able to answer. For a long time, I've just been making things, never been thinking about how to respond when you're in front of the camera. So my take home from this interview was that those questions were very well formulated, very well researched. I know probably you didn't go through everything, but it was enough to make me understand that I need to be ready and I need to be prepared. Yeah.
Where can we find you?
Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at em_Mwangi, or just Instagram at em_Mwangi. If you follow me there, you'll find me. Anywhere else, you'll be up to date with what I'm doing. If I don't update anything, just know that I'm in the kitchen cooking something, preparing something, and stuff is gonna come out soon, because once it does, I always shout about it. So